When you travel, sooner or later, this will happen to you. You'll come around a corner, walk a crowded street, take a long hike, or stare into a landscape that makes you realize this is the one place on Earth you were meant to find. For many, Switzerland is that place.
Maybe one of the prettiest settings I've ever seen where civilization meets nature.
If you've never been, a trip here might seem far away or impossible to do, but you'd be wrong.
Everything's better. The cheese tastes better, the butter tastes better, the beer tastes better.
The scenery alone left us literally dumbfounded.
This might be the best hike we may ever take on this earth.
But the people we met along the way reminded us that we weren't dreaming and that places like this are actually real.
But you can literally, in some cases, walk a block or two off of the main street, and it's like no one else is around.
We're often asked, what's our favorite place we've traveled to? After spending a week in Switzerland, the answer to that question will be forever easy.
Got mountain glaciers right there. You got greenery. I mean, this is sadly putting most places to shame.
When you travel, the world becomes a smaller place. When you explore with friends that share a love of photography, destinations come to life. We tell the stories of travel with our cameras, capturing some of the most beautiful locations on Earth. But every adventure reveals more than what's in the frame. The people, the food, and unexpected turns of the journey bring the full experience of travel into focus.
Production funding for Outside Beyond the Lens provided by the Fresno Clovis Convention and Visitors Bureau. Nature, diversity, found in the heart of California's San Joaquin Valley. Fresno County, an outside year-round playground. By Gar Titillion, crop care advice, products, and services. Farms feed families, public television feeds minds. By BK Lighting and Tekka Illumination, helping brighten the world with custom landscape and architectural lighting solutions. By Integrated Agribusiness Professionals, members building healthy families and communities to feed your heart and soul. And by Valley Air Conditioning and Repair, family-owned for 50 years, proud to support Outside Beyond the Lens and the wonders of travel. And by viewers like you.
I've always been drawn to mountains. I've always felt at home when I'm in, on, or near mountains, no matter where they are. I suppose growing up in the Sierra Nevada mountains of California has something to do with that. I spent a lot of time wandering in forests, fishing in creeks, and just raising a lot of hell as a kid playing in the mountains. It's the same thing for David Boomer and John Neely. We all grew up within a few miles of each other in small mountain towns, so when I suggested we load up our camera gear to shoot for a week in Switzerland, I know they were as excited as I was to finally make a trip to a place I'd always dreamed of visiting. To walk among the most beautiful mountains in the world, in my opinion, the Swiss Alps. Our adventure begins on the streets of Zurich, Switzerland. This is the transportation capital of the country, with its state-of-the-art airport and railway hub. Zurich is a beautiful city to explore on foot. As one of the world's banking and financial centers, Zurich is a mix of ultra-modern sophistication with true old-world European charm. You can be walking through exclusive shops and cafes one minute, and then turn a corner and be on the steps of a church that was literally built in the 9th century. This city was never bombed during either one of the world wars, so unlike a lot of the historic buildings that were destroyed throughout Europe, Zurich boasts some of the oldest, intact buildings and churches in the region.
This place is awesome. I mean, instantly, like, you're It's mesmerizing. It's like everything you've dreamed Zurich would be. It's that and more. This place is amazing. I can't believe it. It's like I'm just walking around with a smile on my face. Just like, this place is so cool.
As is the case through much of Europe, the train system here is clean, efficient, and easy to use. Zurich is regularly at the top of lists as one of the best cities in the world to live in, and it doesn't take a lot of time here to figure out why. But we came here to see mountains, so after one night in Zurich, it's time to head south to a section of Switzerland called the Bernese Oberland, the heart of the Swiss Alps. While most people who vacation here use the rail system to get around, we've rented a car at the airport to have a little more control over where and when we decide to stop and film. Our plan is to head south past Lake Lucerne and into the Alps near the town of Interlaken.
It's our first view of the actual Swiss Alps. We're right at Lake Lucerne and still navigating traffic and trying to figure out how to drive and not going over the speed limit. We've been warned, do not go over the speed limit here because you will get a fine or go to jail. They don't mess around. We've learned about the Swiss. They do not mess around. They run a tight ship and it shows. It's awesome here. But this first view off to my left of the Alps in the background is pretty amazing. Try not to crash.
Try not to crash.
Try not to crash.
Or miss our turn.
Or miss our turn. Yeah, it's so far amazing.
If you drive in Switzerland, you'll be treated to perfectly paved, pothole-free roads and an incredible tunnel system that quickly transports you from the lowlands and lake country into a majestic world of mountains that leaves us totally mesmerized. Everything you've ever seen or thought Switzerland would look like, the green hills, the snow-covered peaks and quaint villages and farms, it is exactly like that. But the scale of the place is what can't be understood until you see it in person. These mountains are massive.
I feel like I'm on a Disneyland ride, yet I'm not. It's that pretty. It's like perfect. It's like everything's a movie set and perfectly placed.
Switzerland is a country with a tremendous amount of national pride and long history of doing things with a high level of precision that's clear to see. This place is tight, clean, and runs like a Swiss watch. Nearly 1/3 of the land area of this small country is dedicated to agriculture, which, when you think about it, with a lot of the country covered in steep mountains, that's a lot. Even though we're getting close to Lauterbrennan, we have to get off the main highway and explore some of the back roads and farmland here. It's just too incredibly beautiful to not take a closer look. Being in places like this and the mood change that can happen when you're surrounded by peaceful scenes of green meadows, forests, and farmland is exactly why travel to a place like Switzerland is good for the soul. Back on the road now, we head closer to Interlaken as we skirt the southern shore of Lake Brienz. Here, another quick stop in the lakeside village of Isselwald reveals a small historic town and a glimpse at real life in the Alps. It's a place that sees a little bit of tourism, but unlike national parks in the United States, these are beautiful places where people actually live and work.
So I think it's just like any tourist place. You can come here and you can certainly find your tour buses, but you can literally, in some cases, walk a block or two off of the main street, and it's like no one else is around. And certainly when you spend the night 2 lift stations up in the Alps, you know, you get to that point in the evening where there's literally no one else on the street with you. And you actually sit down in a cafe and you're sitting next to the locals and you're hearing them talk about their kids, and their kids are playing around you. And you're getting to see the things they do day to day. So you get to see them herding their cows. You see them, they have their cheese for sale out back and on the honest system. And that's really different than being in a U.S. national park.
After passing through the fairly good-sized city of Interlaken, we now turn deep into the Alps below the Jungfrau mountain group for a short drive into what may be the most photogenic valley on Earth, Lauterbrennan. The village of Lauterbrennan is set in a deep, narrow valley, accented by 900-foot Staubach Fall, one of the highest unbroken waterfalls in Europe. The roof of the Alps frame this enchanted valley, guarded by the 13,642-foot Jungfrau to the south. The glaciers of Jungfrau feed cold waters to the valley below year-round, cutting a labyrinth of deep caves and channels through the limestone on their icy journey down. I don't even know what to say right now. I've seen a lot of pretty places in my days. I've been lucky enough to travel around and see some cool stuff. This is way up the list right now. Way up the list. Maybe one of the prettiest settings I've ever seen where civilization meets nature. And look at this. We make quick work of getting checked into the historic Hotel Staubach that will be our home for the next 2 nights. It doesn't take long for us to drop everything in our rooms, grab cameras, and head out. Like most of the small towns we explored in Switzerland, Lauterbrennan has its fair share of tourist shops mixed with great local eateries and one really good bar. But we want to take a closer look at the big waterfall that literally drops into the village. And thanks to the way the Swiss like to make access available to its natural wonders, we head straight up to climb a trail into the side of the mountain that gives us a unique view of Staubach Fall.
All right, well, we've made it to the end of the waterfall trail here. I think this is one of many, but this one comes up and you got to go down the same way. But man, what an incredible cut they made for this trail. I mean, you are literally walking in a carved out spot in this mountain. The waterfall literally is right there. I don't want to lean too far over, but yeah, it's about 100-foot drop down to the bottom there. But man, I mean, Switzerland, man, just taking everything up to that next level of awesomeness.
The best way for me to describe what we all felt while exploring Lauterbrennan was simply pure joy. I kept waiting for something to spoil it, someone to wake me up from the dream this was turning out to be, but it never happened. Now, another big part of travel is the food. For many, it's almost as important as anything else on a trip. Luckily, this is Europe, and more specifically, Switzerland, neatly tucked in between Germany, Italy, and France. So, just by proximity, you know the food and drink is going to hit the mark. It's got some good-looking plates there.
That's a lot of food, a lot of good food.
Now, what did you guys? This is
pork schnitzel with mushroom sauce and roasty, which
they said we heard that's the local thing.
My buddy on the plane said, make sure you try it. Exactly. So it's a potato.
It looks almost like hash browns, kind of wrapped around something.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's inside.
I went with for an appetizer we got a little cheese fondue, Swiss cheese fondue, which you're here in Switzerland, you've got to eat fondue. And if it's made out of Swiss cheese, I guess you got to do that too. Actually, while we were sitting here, I had friends on Facebook saying, order the Swiss cheese fondue, order the Swiss cheese fondue. So we did. And we're going to dip a little bread in that. I went just with the regular pesto spaghetti. We're close enough to the Italian border. I figured we couldn't go wrong with that, right? All right.
So let's dive in.
Cheese, butter, and chocolate are legendary in Switzerland. And if it wouldn't cause 2 more chins to drop out from underneath this smile I have plastered to my face, I'd make this fondue part of my daily routine too. But I think it's safe to say that would be a bad idea. On the way back to the hotel, there's one more indication that Lauterbrennan is awesome. Because having a 900-foot waterfall in the middle of your village isn't cool enough on its own, the townsfolk here uplight their giant natural wonders at night. Yosemite National Park, you guys are slackers. A new day in the Swiss Alps and our first full day of adventure in Lauterbrennan Valley. Today we're jumping on the train to head straight up into the heart of the Jungfrau with an excursion to a frozen outpost 11,000 feet up, a place called the top of Europe. The Jungfrau Railway is a true marvel of modern engineering. The electrically powered system hauls travelers up the steep walls of Lauterbrennan Valley and through various villages that are perched on the canyon walls.
We heard about this mountain and that this is the tallest mountain in Europe, so we were curious about having this view that we are going to watch now.
We never go here to Switzerland, and I keep in my mind I have to be here to see this view, and it's one of a kind.
With each new level the train reaches, the views seem to double in their awesomeness. This place can't be real, but I know it is. For most of this ride, I stare in awe out the window of the train, forever changed by the landscapes I am now a part of. The last 30 minutes of the ride to the top of Europe travels somehow straight up through the core of one of the 3 largest mountains in the region, the Monk. How the Swiss tunnel and build trains to the top of alpine peaks is beyond me, but in this case, it allows a steady flow of tourists to step into a world usually reserved for elite mountaineers geared up with ropes and ice axes, and onto a frozen ledge at nearly 12,000 feet, to stand in line to take a selfie with the Swiss flag. As it turned out, we weren't big fans of the top of Europe. First of all, it's not the top of Europe. That would be the summit of Mont Blanc in France. And second, well, it just turned out to be a crowded tourist trap selling Swiss watches, chocolate, and overpriced food. For me, the views alone are worth the trip up here, but be warned, the top of Europe can be crowded, cold, and windy, and we saw a lot of people getting pretty whipped by the quick ascent into the high altitude, including us.
We're dizzy.
Yeah. Just lightheaded.
Loopy. I'm having a hard time focus on things, putting sentences together. It's a problem when you live at sea level for the last year.
What's a little disconcerting is looking around and there's like everybody around us is perfectly fine.
Totally normal.
Yeah.
Like I saw some people doing tequila shots over there. They're like not
Not even phased.
phase.
On our return trip to Lauterbrennan in the small cliffside village of Wengen, we decide to jump off the train and walk the rest of the way to Lauterbrennan. The early September sky is clear with temps in the mid-70s. Pretty much a perfect day and a perfect place to walk in one of the best mountain settings I've ever seen.
You know, we could have ridden the train all the way back to Lauterbrennan. We've been on the train all day. We kind of wanted to do something different, stretch our legs, get some different shots. One of the cool things when you travel to Europe or anywhere in the world for that matter is Google Translate. Now check this out. I have it dialed in right now for German to English, and I'm going to walk over and I'm going to hit the camera because I'm on the trail. I don't know what this sign is, right? So, because I don't speak German. when I hold this up, it translates theoretically, and there it says. It changed it to that so I can read it in English. Deposit from waste forbidden. So basically, that's a fancy way of saying do not throw trash here.
Don't litter.
Don't litter.
Passing by small farms, the sounds of bells from dairy cows fill the valley, and rolling hills transport me from what I think reality is. If a little elf jumped out of a tree and offered me a plate of cookies right about now, I would not be surprised. The next day, we have some ground to cover because for us, we couldn't come all the way to Switzerland and not make an attempt to see one of the most iconic mountains on Earth, the Matterhorn. It's not always a sure thing to see the Matterhorn, as clouds regularly keep the peak hidden from view, but we have to try. And what I thought would be a 3 or 4 hour ride around the Alps to approach the town of Zermatt below the Matterhorn turned out to be half of that, thanks once again to Swiss ingenuity in action, also known as the car train.
So we've driven about an hour from Lauterbrennan to the little village of Kandersteg, Switzerland now. And this is where we catch the car train. What's interesting is that's kind of the whole reason this whole road kind of dies into this town. We bought our little ticket for 30 francs, about 30 bucks, and we're going to drive our van that we've rented right onto the train. And the train has special cars that just take, there's a Ferrari, really nice Ferrari right there getting onto. Takes the cars, you just park, and then we're going to go through the Alps. We're going to go through a series of tunnels and through valleys, and this will save us time from driving all the way around the Alps to get to where we're staying tonight in the town of Tash.
The speed and efficiency at which the car train people load the car train is impressive. One by one, single file, we pull forward, line up, and we're ready to roll. On the other side, as smoothly as we got on, we drove right off the car train, back onto the highway, and descended into the Rhone River Valley. Zermatt is the main hub just below the Matterhorn, but it's only open to local use of cars. From Tash, we'll make the 5-mile run into Zermatt by train the next morning. I've marveled at the idea of seeing the Matterhorn in person since I first saw photos of it in a book and learned it was a real mountain and not just a popular amusement park ride in Southern California. In Zermatt, we quickly switched trains for the ride up and out of the valley to Gornergrat, where commanding 360-degree views of the Alps and the Matterhorn await. As the train slowly climbs above Zermatt, I happened to turn to look out the window as the train cleared the tree line, and, without any fanfare or voice on the intercom announcing a big reveal, there, standing more majestically than any mountain I can ever remember seeing, was the Matterhorn. The Gornergrat railway system is the highest open-air railway in Europe, and as we approach the summit near 10,200 feet on a crystal-clear day weather-wise, views of the Alps into France and Italy fill the windows. The Matterhorn Hotel and Observatory sits atop Gornergrat. It was completed in 1907 and, for obvious reasons, is a popular place to stay overlooking one of the world's most famous mountains. The Matterhorn is an international tourist destination, and of all the places to experience it from afar, Gornergrat is one of the top spots. Back in Zermatt, our long day up high comes to an end. The energy of this town in the Swiss Alps draws you in and is slow to let us go. Often, at the end of a 5 or 6 day rocket run shooting in places around the world, we're all pretty tired and ready to get home. But this one is different. I can truly say that for the first time, it hurts to leave a place. I know I'll come back, but leaving Switzerland is like saying goodbye to a friend you know you won't see for a while. a good friend that you're really going to miss.
Production funding for Outside Beyond the Lens provided by the Fresno Clovis Convention and Visitors Bureau. Nature, diversity, found in the heart of California's San Joaquin Valley. Fresno County, an outside year-round playground. By Gar Titillion, crop care advice, products, and services. Farms feed families, public television feeds minds. By BK Lighting and Tekka Illumination, helping brighten the world with custom landscape and architectural lighting solutions. By Integrated Agribusiness Professionals, members building healthy families and communities to feed your heart and soul. And by Valley Air Conditioning and Repair, family-owned for 50 years, proud to support Outside Beyond the Lens and the wonders of travel. And by viewers like you.